Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, neighbor complains about maintaining a hedge wall and then has to construct a wooden fence. When is a pen not a pen? It's your propane? Okay. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Neighbor complains about maintaining a hedge wall and then has to construct a wooden fence. This story happened about a decade ago when I was still a teenager and used to live in my parents' house. We are migrants and are on good terms with all the neighbors since the 90s, but we do have a reputation in the neighborhood of frequently undertaking ambitious DIY home improvements and in an atypical manner to what locals expect. Our house is separated from the neighbors with a living hedge wall of cypress trees that grow on our property. At the time of this story, we already lived in the house for the better part of the decade with the same neighbors and the same cypress trees. One day, out of the blue, one of the neighbors sees my mom working in the garden and starts complaining about the state of the living hedge on her side of the property. We usually trim the hedge only from our side and most of the top that we can reach. The neighbor complains and demands us to trim the hedge from their side as well. In her eyes, as the hedge wall is planted on our property, it's 100% our responsibility and they are tired of maintaining it from their side. The altercation is very brief as my mother surprisingly quickly replies okay and walks off grinning. Unbeknown to the neighbor, we already were planning to cut down the hedges to the stump so that they could regrow anew, as the existing hedge was very old and was not particularly sightly. Previously, we postponed these works as we did not want to upset the neighbors, but this demand provided the perfect excuse. So the next day, while the neighbors are at work, we cut down all the hedges surrounding our property to barely above ground. As we are finishing clearing up the trimmings, the neighbors come back home from work shocked to discover the hedge practically gone. They look around and realize that with the hedge wall gone, their whole backyard, kitchen, living room and bedroom are on full display through the windows. The neighbor questions what have we done and why, as they would no longer have any privacy in their own home. My mom, without missing a beat, replies, "We fixed the problem, the hedge will no longer need trimming from your side," and goes back to clearing up. Within a week, the neighbors came back to us and asked for permission to construct a wooden fence on our property to protect their privacy. We happily agreed as long as they paid for it all, as we didn't mind waiting a couple of years for the hedge to regrow. Our privacy was much less impacted. They built the fence within the week and it provided a good surface for some vine flowers to grow instead of the cypress trees that my mother had wanted to plant for a long time. People are concerned that the neighbors would be able to claim some of the land as theirs. This is not the case, as the property delineation markers are still there and nobody would ever move/tamper with them. Even if they did, this is in an EU country and our land is marked based on specific coordinates and not some arbitrary lines such as a fence, no matter the situation. When the fence was being constructed, we made sure that this was the case. I should have originally specified that they effectively paid and constructed a fence for us that we legally own. When is a pen not a pen? At the start of my teaching career, I taught a grade 10 English class. After many days of being furious that students showed up to class without a pen, I put a big sign on the door that said, "You must have a pen to enter this room." I did not notice that someone added an "is" to the word pen. I did notice that all the girls maliciously complied and went and hung out in the cafeteria because they did not have a pen is. They even told the supervisor that they weren't allowed in the room. Well played, ladies. I changed the sign to "You must have a writing stick to enter this room" and decided not to care if students wrote in pen, pencil, crayon or marker as long as they entered the room ready to learn. It's your propane? Okay. The company used to rent out a section of a warehouse from a different company that we had been in partnership with previously, so we had a little fenced-off section and the use of their forklift that they left on site for their side of the warehouse as part of the deal. Now, whenever the propane tank ran out, I would pull the empty and run it over to their storage cage and let their warehouse manager know I was replacing one, so he could keep track of how many he had. One day I go over and he tells me, "Oh, boss says you're supposed to supply your own propane." Alrighty then, put the empty in their cage and I go unload my truck with a pallet jack. The next day I stop and buy 2 tanks so I can swap them out, and whenever I'm not using the forklift I take the tank off and lock it behind our section. It's my propane after all, and apparently we're going to have rules about that. A few days later their warehouse manager comes up to unload a truck and asks me where the tank is. I tell him mine is over here, yours are all down in your cage. So he has to drive down the road and bring one back, and reinstall it every time he needs the forklift. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.